Good morning, everybody. I hope everyone is doing good. Hope you're having a good day. Tonight we're going to go ahead and take advantage of this day that we're having, and we want to start working on the 1996 Dodge Ram 1500. So we started noticing that we had a little bit of a leak on the rear differential. So let's go ahead and make this happen, okay? So it's in regards to changing your differential fluid to include the gasket. Okay, tools you're going to be needing for this job. Okay, it'd be a good idea to take a picture of the rear differential, and you want to have some sort of stencil, okay, so you can actually do an outline of what that rear differential is going to look like and where each bolt is going to go in. Okay, just to give you a good example, there's a possibility of different bolts could be longer than the other ones, so we want to make sure that every single bolt is going to go in the exact order that it came out and in the correct placement. Okay, the gear oil that we're going to be using for this particular model, again, 96 Dodge Ram 5.2 liter, is a 88090. You're going to be needing a ratchet. You're going to be needing a 13 millimeter socket. Okay, so stand by. We're going to get this thing squared away. All right, guys, step two. So what we ended up doing, we ended up removing every single bolt that was inside this housing, right? So you want to leave that very top one, and then you want to use some sort of prying device. So I ended up using this type of device right over here, and you end up seeing you have like an ear section over here, and you want to put that pressure to it here, okay, pushing forward, so this whole cap or housing is going to separate itself, and it's still going to be engaged by the very last bolt. Okay, again, I give you instructions about how to change it with a ratchet. If you don't have a ratchet, having an air ratchet and being very handy for you, okay, gets the job done really quick. So according to this one, it looks like they ended up using that material, that gasket material. So some of them were a little bit, they were on there pretty good. You can see some of that material still on there, but it's not a difficult job by no means. Okay, some of them they end up having the threaded plug right over here, and this one you ended up seeing some sort of plastic plug. Okay, so when I ended up removing this, started doing that fluid examination by putting your pinky inside, I noticed that it was kind of low. So again, 1996 Dodge Ram, you know, it's been out on the road for a lot of years, so I'm pretty sure that the last time this was done was a long time ago. So stand by for section 3 of the So this is what the product ends up looking like once you take that housing off. You end up seeing that we do have some material around the surrounding perimeter of this, okay? And inside, you end up touching it inside, and you end up seeing there's some sort of metal shavings. So the objective here is that we want to clean all that stuff out with a little bit of carburetor, with a little bit of brake cleaner, and just end up making all those surfaces nice and clean. So the biggest thing is the perimeter where the housing goes here, okay? So you want to get all this nice and clean from that gasket material that you end up having, okay? Alright guys, so once we take it off, we actually have it in this part washer bay, okay? And we end up seeing that the last person that had this vehicle had that RTF on here, and that gasket material, okay? So we want to make sure we clean every single thing out, okay, from this housing. You can see that material just starts coming off, okay? You can use a putty knife style like this. It's not recommended, you know, they talk about, because you could actually scrape into it, which could give you bigger problems down the road if that would be the case, okay? As long as you're careful with it, I really don't see the issue with it. You know, you're not gonna be scraping into it, but you just want to start taking some of this material off, okay? And have this all nice and clean, as well as the inside of this housing, okay? Because once you put the new gasket on, whether you decide to use manufactured gasket or you want to use some other type of gasket material, like the person before me had this Okay, the objective is to make sure that everything is nice and clean and flush. That way you put your new material or your new gasket, and once it comes in, once it gets back installed in the rear differential, you're not going to have any kind of leakage material. Alright guys, so what we're doing now is cleaning the bolts that go in the housing, because what we end up seeing is, like example, this type of bolt still has a lot of the gasket material inside of it. So when we start putting these bolts inside the plate, we're not going to get 100% torque measurement. So what you can end up doing is, if you have a vise, you can end up securing that bolt from the head on the hex side. Okay, nothing too tight, just as long as it's snug. And you want to grab yourself a wire brush like this. Okay, I got a pretty good size one on. Okay, so you end up just scraping all that material off of the threads. One thing to make sure that when you grab this bolt in the vise, you don't want to grab it from the thread, because last thing you want to do is start ruining the threads, and then it's not going to end up bolting on. So again, grabbing you a good size wire brush like this and just scraping it off. And you're just scraping off the material, nothing hard, just a good little firm scrape. And same thing on the top of the bolt, removing all that gasket material. And once you're done here, you can end up rotating it over. You want to grab it on that washer end of this bolt. And this is just if you want to. If it's your prerogative, no big deal. Okay, and you just want to scrape all that rust, example like this one has on top of the head. Okay, you just want to grab it, that way you make sure it doesn't loosen itself off. Okay, nothing too extensive. And if you don't have a big wire brush like this, and if you don't have a vise like this, you could also just grab some sort of smaller wire brush and just grab it with your hand, excuse me, and then slowly just removing that material just like that. Okay, easy enough. Alright guys, so we end up having the housing right over here, right? We ended up cleaning that whole surface all the way inside, got it 100% complete. And then we also got our gasket. So before we even install it, we want to make sure that this is the correct gasket, excuse me, okay? As we see, we got 100% measurement right over there, okay? So again, making sure that everything is clean. We gave it a little bit of a brush down on the back, remove some of the surface rust, remove the gasket that was inside all the bolt entries, and looks like we're doing pretty good. Okay, so the next portion now is to get the rest of it ready and put it back before installation. Guys, now that we're in back of the differential, we're at the base now. Okay, and we notice that there's still some material. There's a little bit of rust that I guess was forming on the side of this. Okay, so on this base plate, it's very important that we have a clean surface as well, because if it's not 100% clean and we still have material like we end up seeing right here, that gasket's going to have a really hard time being able to attach to it, to giving you that 100% seal that we're looking for. Okay, so just like everything else, man, just take your time, take it slow. Okay, no rush. Okay, there's no rush. Just take it easy, take it slow, and we'll get it done. Alright gents, so we're under the truck again. The housing has been placed on the truck. Okay, we only have 2 bolts right now, just for stabilization. We got the top bolt and then a bottom bolt. Okay, so what you want to end up doing is have something like this. Okay, it's just my recommendation. We got a little container like this, and it got a magnet in the back. You end up placing it on something like this, and you're just an arm's reach away from grabbing your bolt and inserting it. Okay, it's your prerogative if you want to, but I'm going to go ahead and recommend put a little bit of Loctite, the blue one, not the red one, on each bolt, just so that it prevents them from rattling off. Okay, so here we go. Let's get the process started. Two more to go. Alright guys, so we're just going to get these snug, okay, before we actually start torquing these bad boys to specifications, okay. And we're also, even when we're snugging them, we want to make sure that we follow that star pattern. We're going through each single one of them, making sure that we didn't miss any, just for the snug process. Because I mean, it's 12 bolts, you know, it's a possibility that you could have missed something. Okay, so after we verify that they're all snug, we want to remove the 13 socket from our ratchet. You want to place it into our torque wrench. So what I'm going to be using today is a Snap-on digital 3/8 torque wrench. Okay, so we're going to start from the top. This is number 2. space that you have to work with. All right, just want to make sure everything, one more time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Let me reposition. Stand by. I got an issue with my torque wrench. All right. The number ended up jumping up on me. Went to 27 for some reason. 10, 11, 12. All right. So we torqued every single down to 30 foot-pounds. Okay, we want to make sure that that tab that it has, it stays on the original location. And again, we went start pattern. Okay, and then once everything was tightened, we want to make sure that we verify that one more time. Okay, as another YouTuber says, the price that we pay for safety, so obviously safety has to come first. Okay, so we went through every single bolt, verifying that it's torqued to specification. So now the process is that we're gonna remove this little plastic cap, and we're gonna start filling it up with some gear oil. All right, guys, so now what we're gonna end up doing, we're gonna start getting the gear oil ready. It's for this model. We got 1996 Dodge Ram 1500 with a 5.2 liter 4x4, and we're gonna be using the Valvoline 80 weight 90. Okay, so we have a certain process we're gonna do this to be able to make it a little bit easier for us. If you end up seeing it has a little tabs here where we're gonna start cutting away. So we're gonna start cutting with the first tab and grab some wire pliers and snipping it away. Okay. All right, so after we snap off this part, you want to go ahead and remove this, because there's some of these are going to end up having this little sealer. You want to go ahead and remove it. When removing it, just be very careful that none of this material ends up going inside. Okay, so that's just the only thing, just being aware of what you got going on. You want to insert it back on, then grabbing your hose line, your fuel line, and then you have a clamp on there. That way when you start coming down, clamping it on, you're not going to have too much of an issue having some sort of leverage. All right, so here we go. All right, so we want to go ahead and remove the fill plug, which in my case is going to be just some sort of little plastic or rubber. You want to go ahead and insert the fuel line. Start squeezing it out. And in the event you don't have anything like this, okay, let's say you don't have any kind of fuel line, I mean, you could always just do this, you know. Yeah, it just gets a little tiring, but it's no issue. I think it actually goes pretty smooth. To be able to make this go a little bit faster, you could actually pop a little hole into this canister to get a little bit of air going, and it will go by smoother for you. I'll give you a quick example. Stand by. Alright guys, and with the magic of my camera assistant, and I have a pick, right? And I can actually end up putting a little hole in here, and voila, it goes a million times faster now. Yeah, I'm gonna grab a rag, and it starts leaking out when I remove it from my position. See that? This cord is almost gone. It's amazing the way that fluid ends up looking when you start turning it out. So once we dumped it into that catch pan, it was darker than charcoal. You know, it's very important, the preventative maintenance that we end up doing to these vehicles. You know, a lot of people end up buying a brand new vehicle and they never do anything. They have the satisfaction of it's a brand new vehicle, that they don't have to do anything, you know, and a couple years down the road they find themselves in a heap of troubles because of that. So it's very important, you know. Last job that I was doing, I ended up changing the spark plugs in a 2003 Ford Expedition, and them shops down the road want to charge me about $500-600, and that's just if one of the plugs did not break, because that model apparently was notorious for having broken spark plugs. You know, I ended up buying those spark plugs and ignition coils online from 1A Auto, and it cost me about $100 and something, and a couple hours into it, you know, we had a good running vehicle. You know, it pays to do it yourself. It pays to want to learn a little bit about that vehicle that you're running, you know, because God knows that a lot of us can't be affording to paying those outrageous prices that some of these mechanic shops end up charging. So again, take your time, read up on it, learn it, and you can do it. Just another day in the weekend garage shop, you know. All right, we're done with this bottle. Let's get bottle number 2 ready. All right, guys, so we're done. We're going ahead and put our plug back on. So making sure that once you're done, once you've inserted the plug, whether it's a rubber one like this or the threaded one, that it's 100% secure, you ain't got no other leakage. We want to verify our work area, making sure that we don't have any kind of leakage. There's no leakage because of the gasket. If you did use the RTV, which is we did not discuss in this video, there is a certain time frame that you have to wait for it to cure itself. But again, we did not use that. So verify your work, do a little bit of housekeeping, make sure you're taking care of yourself. So we are 100% completed with this project. We appreciate you guys that ended up stopping by and checking it out, whether you have an issue with the same issue that we had, a leakage, or you just want to do it for a little bit of maintenance. We appreciate you stopping by and checking it out. So if you haven't done so yet, go ahead and give a like, subscribe to the channel. We got a whole lot more videos that are going to be coming up, just different things we can focus on. This Dodge Ram, we got another 1994 Chevy that we're working on as well, to include that Expedition that I talked about earlier. So thank you so much for stopping by. Appreciate you guys. Be safe, take care of yourselves, and learn as much as you can. Like always, take your time, and you can do it. You can do it just like I can do it. See ya.